Hello
Yes.
and welcome to the Business Talk podcast. I'm your host Deepak. Let us extend a warm welcome to Dr. Charles-Henri Besseyre de Horts as he joins us on our podcast. Professor Charles-Henri, Emeritus Professor at HEC Paris, holds dual doctorates from the University of Aix-Marseille and UCLA. He is the past president of the AGRH, the Francophone Association of Academics in HR, is a distinguished organization comprising over 1,000 members from 20 Francophone countries, dedicated to advancing human resources, education, research, and collaboration across all the Francophone world, and has directed multiple research chairs, including the HEC-Toshiba chair on Nomadism and Mobile Technology and the HEC-Webhelp chair on Human Capital and Performance. He has nearly 3 decades of teaching experience across all HEC programs, including the HEC MS in Management, HEC MBA, HEC Doctorate, and HEC Executive Programs. He founded and led the MS HEC Executive Program in Strategy HR Management for 15 years. His research centers on organizational change management, digital transformation, and the relationship between human capital and corporate performance. A prolific author, he has published over 25 books and 73 articles. He is actively engaged in consulting and training initiatives across Europe and Asia and Africa. Additionally, he serves as the Director of Corporate Relations at FNEGE, a prestigious foundation dedicated to fostering the growth and integration of academic education in various management disciplines. In this episode, Dr. Charles-Henri will share profound insights from his research, Human Capital in the Digital Era, aligning talent with strategy for lasting impact. Dr. Charles-Henri, it is an honor and privilege to have you join us today.
Thank you, Deepak. I am very pleased to be on this podcast, and I am listening to your questions, and I'm going to try to answer the best way.
Thank you, Professor. Professor, can you explain how the digital transformation has redefined human capital management in organizations, and what are the biggest challenges organizations face in aligning their human capital strategy with business goals today?
Okay, so this question is interesting because you talk about digital transformation, the impact on human capital, and what are the challenges to align HR and strategy. So to start, I would say that obviously what you call digital the transformation is not a new thing. I would say since we have computers, we are talking about digital transformation. More than half a century ago, we started to have the microcomputers on the table, you remember. So things have started to change more than 40, 50 years ago. But the most important part of the digital transformation is obviously the past 20 years. And if you remember, we started really to have a big change with a simple tool, very widely used today, the email. Remember, it was the first time people could talk to anyone in the organization and outside the organization without going through processes, through managers, and so on. You could talk to your CEO right in 1996, 95, you see. So it's 30 years ago. And then obviously for the transformation itself, we have this time of what we call the EHR. The EHR happened to be in early 2000. When we started really to have some decentralization of tools, of lots of digital tools already, and clearly we had this question: should we include a lot of HR processes through digital tools, or the ones that was existing that were existing at the time. And then we started to see this social network thing, happening, including within organization, and then again has changed how you manage human capital, because you could exchange a lot of ideas, starting to do knowledge management and so on. And obviously, we had most recent innovations were the metaverse, but the metaverse, right? Very soon, I said it won't be a huge thing. It would be useful for some activities such as training in difficult environments or doing some recruitment processes, but I didn't see it was a big change. However, in the past 2 years, obviously, we talked a lot about AI. We talked before the Gen AI, we talked about AI, but for HR, the Gen AI is really the biggest chance. So if you look in the past, let's say 30, 40 years, we had a different steps, and clearly all the activities included in the HR function and the HR role in organization have been, to some extent, been impacted by the digital transformation. But we can go further in detail in other questions. And now the second question you ask in the same is the biggest challenge organizations face in aligning their human capital strategy with business goals. I mean, it has been a story for more than 40 years again. You know, the first book I published, maybe I didn't tell you, Deepak, when we talked, but was a French book called Towards a Strategic HR. It was published in 1988. I was the French Francophone author to talk about the alignment of HR and strategy. And for me, being aligned is not enough. I would say that HR is really strategic when HR can influence the business and not just aligning with the business goals, you see. I do see a much more proactive role of HR when we talk about strategic HR. Clearly, we have to develop programs that are aligned with the business goals. I'm not against the alignment idea, but I say it's not sufficient, you know. And for me, the most important issue for HR to be seen as a strategic actor is to be able to influence the business.
How are advanced analytics and digital tools reshaping the way companies assess and enhance workforce performance? What role do these tools play in improving engagement and productivity?
So you see, here you talk about the question of analytics, you know, and digital tools. That was a problem for HR. To be honest, HR is not very comfortable with data and analytics, you know, because it's not in the culture, the traditional culture of HR. HR was basically, and especially in Europe, but in most countries, based on legal issues, you know, administrative first, basic administration, you know, then legal, and then a lot of psychology and, you know, sociology issues regarding. So the analytics and all the data tools and, you know, are not the cup of tea for HR. So, but now we have really to think of developing a lot of analytics and digital tools capabilities for HR. And what I see is the more and more, you know, KPIs in HR, you know, to prove that we are doing what we are supposed to do. And just to give you an idea, in France, we were the only country in the world for many years to have what we called a social balance sheet. A social balance sheet that was a law in 1977, you see, passed for companies over 300 people, the staff of 300. And this law say you have to produce a number of KPIs every year on recruitment, on training, on compensation, just to make sure that you are monitoring your HR policy, your HR strategy. And that was an innovation. That was a legal tool. It's still, by the way, it's still a legal tool, but we were more advanced than anywhere else in Europe. That was the first time you had to prove with data and analytics. And clearly, if you are able to prove what you are hoping to do in HR, then you create more engagement because you see more transparency. You see more, proof of the impact of a good recruitment, the impact of good training, you know, the impact of excellent compensation and benefits programs, and obviously talent management, how you detect, how you identify your talents. Is it fair? You know, question of fairness is very important. So that's how you can obviously improve engagement and productivity. If the people feel well treated, then the impact is clearly, you know, something you you have to think of, and the HR has a key role in developing what I call strategic differentiation. If you want really to differentiate from your competitors, you have to have the best talents, and because nobody can copy the talents, You can copy the process, you can copy the machines, the technical part, you can copy the business ideas, but you can never copy someone.
Professor, in your experience, what are the most effective strategies for aligning workforce capabilities with overarching corporate objectives? And how can leaders ensure that alignment is sustainable over time?
Here we go back a bit to the first question you asked, but here I'm really focusing on obviously number one, to be able to influence the corporate strategy, the business strategy with the for the organization. And one way to influence obviously the strategic goals are the kind of talents you have within your organization, and how you can use your talents to develop, for instance, a new business lines, or a new country, you see. So I insist on the influence of the business strategy. But then what you are saying, obviously, we are talking about the aligning workforce capabilities. It goes through recruitment, the appropriate profile you need. Clearly, today, one of the big issues are all the data people, what I call the data and digital people, sorry. These profiles are scarce. I know that in India, you have a lot of people in the digital world, that you are a big country for this issue. But I would say that this alignment goes through good recruitment, appropriate recruitment. Then when you have a good onboarding, and then you clearly people have to be developed. You have to adjust the capabilities to the need of the organization. So you have obviously training, you have mobility. In fact, you have the whole cycle of what I call talent management, you see. And again, you have also the well-being. How do you treat your people? And everything is designed to improve the relationship with the client. I often say that you have one of the best example in India, and that's an example, a concrete example. In 2010, I was in Hyderabad teaching a strategic HR program for the ISB, for Indian School of Business. And I discovered a little book the last day of my stay in Hyderabad in the business school. And the title of the book was Employees First, Customers Second, written by the famous Vineet Nayar. I read the book in the plane back to Paris, and between Mumbai and Paris. And I said, this guy is just great. He has understood everything. He puts human capital as the number one, to make the difference. I met Mr. Nayar. I was lucky enough to be the French who was the best known. I mean, I'm very close to Mr. Nayar. I had him about 10 times in France until the pandemic. He gave a lot of conferences. And why I gave the example of Vineet Nayar? When he says employees first, customers second, it's not to say that the customers are not important, but they are so important that you have to develop to treat your people well. And that's why I say aligning workforce capabilities with corporate objectives. That's how you can make a sustainable. The model of employees first, customers second is still very alive within HCL Technologies, which the companies he has been the CEO during 8 years between 2005 and 2013. But what is interesting, since he left the company, and for some personal reason, including he's sick, he's sick. And what I have seen with this organization, HCL Technologies, there are now more than 220,000 employees. 220,000 employees, and the model is still alive. And they have even developed, added something called IDpreneurship. And the whole idea of this model is to put people first because they are the ones who make the difference, you see. And having a sustainable over time, is to be convinced, and as leaders, and I'm not talking about HR leaders, I'm talking about business leaders, that the only key factor that makes the difference are the people. Is the people, you see.
Professor Charles, how can organizations create a culture of innovation and agility within their workforce to thrive in ever-changing business environment? What role does human capital play in fostering such a culture?
I'm going to continue with the example of HCL Technologies. That's exactly what Mr. Nayar and all these people have done. It's this culture of innovation and agility, to try to survive. Because the case of HCL is interesting, because when he took the leadership of HCL, the company was going down. You see, was not in a good shape. And he completely changed the business model, putting what we call the quality of the service on a higher level, and so on. The clients were more and more happy. I mean, you see. So how you can create it's give autonomy, give responsibility, trust the people. Don't continue to manage as a command and control, organization. Here in France, we have a number of companies that are still under the command and control. I mean, I think they fail. They fail in the long term, because now the people, especially the young generations, they don't want to be treated like my generation. I am a pure baby boomer. I am example. You have in front of you one of the baby boomer. The young generation, the Y generation, even the Z generation, they don't want to have the management their parents had. So developing a culture of innovation and agility goes with autonomy, responsibility, trust, respect, and so on. Treat the people as adults, not as children, and you'll get everything around innovation and agility. People will accept to change their way of working if you ask them to do so, because you have maybe a business change, some situation. They will accept if they are respected. And I give you an example of French organization called Michelin Thai, which is a huge Thai company. As you know, 120,000 people, 120,000 people in the company. They have developed something called responsabilization, so responsibilization, if you prefer. And the whole idea is to give the power to the workers level. It's very simple, treat the people well. They give a lot of autonomy, a lot of possibility to develop new ideas on the ground, and obviously within the context of the organization, within the strategy of the organization. It's not, they don't, but it's I think my vision is the companies in the future will have to develop more and more autonomy and responsibility at the lowest level. We call it, by the way, subsidiarity. Developing subsidiarity. And human capital, what role does human capital play in fostering such a culture, as you ask? Clearly, I mean, the kind of people you are hiring, how you develop the people, create the possibility for the people to act, at the lowest level, to make decisions and so on. Obviously, it's not total freedom. It's not, people are not free 100%. They have to work, to be autonomous, to be responsible at their level within the context of the organization. So I'm not against the process. Processes are useful, but the only way to create a culture of innovation and agility is to give power to the people. And for a French, it's difficult. because the French culture, traditional French culture, is really against this idea, and that's why I'm.
Okay. As the workplace continue to evolve, what are the key factors that contribute to building resilience within teams? And how can organizations ensure that their employees are adaptable and prepared for future challenges?
Again, I'm going to continue with the previous question. For me, it's clearly really to be able to get the people ready to act, to be autonomous, to be responsible. And here, I would say it's continuous learning. That is for me the critical factor. We cannot think of the situation my generation knew, and when we were trained, basically, especially in college, in school, we said, okay, it's for life. But you know very well now that competences are obsolete after 2 or 3 years, including even faster in some domains. So I would say if you want to build resilience within teams, it's really to develop the ability of the people to adapt, to put themselves in question, and to have new learnings, to have I would say the possibility for them to accept the change and to be prepared for the change, you see. And I would say that learning, obviously, good recruitment, and it's the whole HR value chain. I would say you could think of, again, mobility, transferring the right competences where you need them for business reason. Clearly, the compensation, how you compensate people is important. But I would say compensation for me is there is the financial part, but there is also the non-financial part, and that's what I call the recognition, you see. So clearly, how can organization ensure that their employees are adaptable? I mean, training, and training. I would say be in a situation where the people take some responsibility in their own development, and the possibility, by the way, for the people to manage their career with the help of the organization. So it's not just the responsibility of the employee to make decision regarding the career. The organization has also the right to say something. And by the way, we have digital tools to do that. We have more and more companies having some systems where the employees can envision all the jobs that are available in their scope, try to see what are their competences versus the needed competences for the new job, and then to do some trainings, self-training, online training, and so on. So lots of possibilities. And digital is obviously helping a lot in this process.
Dr. Charles, what skills and competencies should leaders develop to effectively manage talent in the digital age?
Well, certainly not the type of leaders I call the command and control. Basically, the opposite. Leaders should be more and more at the service of the people, And that's, again, if I think of Vinit Nair, the Indian leader, in his book, he says we are the bottom of the pyramid. The people on the top are the employees. So that's an example. And I would say the type of leadership I see to effectively manage talent in the digital age, clearly the type of leaders that are much more what I call servant leaders, sharing powers with the people. The people in the digital age are speaking up a lot. I told you earlier that one of the big changes in the digital transformation was the arrival of email. But email, again, was a possibility to anyone, for anyone in the organization to talk and to communicate with the top boss. So that's, you cannot now think of an organization where the people have not the right to connect to the boss directly, you see. So I would say it's much more, I'd say servant leadership, it's empathy, it's even modesty. I would say the leaders of tomorrow will have different styles. We'll have obviously it's not, but I would say a big trend towards much more. I would call democratic leader. To some extent, and again, it's not a surprise. You see, I think one of the characteristic in this also of leadership is authenticity. You have to be authentic, and to say and to keep to walk the talk, as you say in English. That means you have to say, when you say something, you have to prove that you do it. You see, and so on. And by the way, it's for the top leader, but also all the leaders within the organization. It's not just what I say, it's not reserved to the top, very senior leader. I'm talking about all managers. Okay.
Looking ahead, what trends or emerging technologies do you see playing a major role in the evolution of human capital strategy?
Well, I'm going to focus on Gen AI. You are not going to be surprised. Clearly, if I see an emerging technology that has been, I would say, a tsunami in the past 2 years, it's Gen AI, because it has, it has an impact on white collar people, which was not the white collar jobs were not very touched by the previous ages of AI. Now we have a big impact on knowledge workers, you see, including a number of HR roles, if we just focus on the HR function. So you can think that we have a lot of new ideas to develop what role of HR, what kind of activities are going to be played by using Gen AI, and also not only for the HR function, but more generally, HR has a key role, and that's for me a strategic role to think of the gap we are going to see in many jobs within the organization, and the needed competencies. So I think there is one activity that I see as critical in HR regarding the whole organization is strategic workforce planning, because Gen AI is going to transform part of many jobs. I don't think that Gen AI will replace a lot of jobs, to be honest. You have some gurus saying that 50% of the job will disappear. I think just, again, a stupid idea. They want to be visible, but I would say that obviously there will be serious transformation of a number of jobs in HR and outside of HR, and you have to analyze clearly, what are the impacts. And one role I see is obviously the critical role of the non-HR business leaders. That are that know their business lines, they know their they know their jobs, and they know how Gen AI will impact their job. See, so again, I focus on Gen AI, but the metaverse for me will have some impact, but I'm not sure, I'm not convinced that it will develop so much. And one thing we don't talk so much when we talk about technology is the cost for the planet. You know that to generate all these beautiful tools we have seen in the past 2 years, it takes a lot of energy. And one of the best experts in France, called Luc Julia, said in a conference last year that if everybody on the planet was using ChatGPT, and to make some request to ChatGPT, there will be enough electricity on the planet. So we need basically 4 times more electricity than when we use Google, for instance. You see.
How important is collaboration between HR, leadership, and IT in shaping human capital strategy? And how can these departments work together to drive success in the digital era?
Again, HR should not be just with HR, working with HR. This question is for me, very obvious. HR has to collaborate with a number of stakeholders. You talk about leadership. I think when you say leadership, you're talking about top management team, right?
Right.
And IT. But I would add a strategy department. I would add finance. You know, we often say there are three key people in an organization: the CEO, the CFO, and the CHRO. So you see, at least the CHRO is among the three. So I would put all these so-called stakeholders or departments within, and they have really to work together to make the organization, you know, the most profitable and the most differentiated from the competition. Because if you want to sustain a long-term competitive advantage, you have to create something unique in your organization, you know. And that's why I give you an example, US example, a company I love. By the way, their logo is a heart, is like a love. It's maybe you know the organization. It's called Southwest Airlines. It's in the airline industry. This company, founded in 71, is one of the most profitable airline in US. I'm not talking the world, because they are mostly a domestic airline. And since the beginning, you know, their human capital strategy is the founding in the foundation of their business strategy. They build their business based on the people, you know, and it's incredible what they have done. They have been among the first companies in the world to recruit mainly on soft skills and not on hard skills, except for the pilot and maintenance engineers. Well, they care about hard skills, but otherwise, you know, this company has been incredible. Still today, they have the lowest people turnover. They have the highest quality client, you know, in the client surveys. They are always ranked basically number one, you know, and it's more than 50 years of success. So, you know, again, and why do I take the example of this company? Because there have been, HR has been collaborating a lot with the leadership at all levels, with IT, obviously, and again, I say the CFO and the other key stakeholders. So again, they have to work together. It's seeing each department as a building block of the success, and it's not you don't have the noble building block like finance being the number one, and then you have strategy and so on. No, you have to take all the departments together and to be you know, working as a team. And again, clearly the CEO vision is critical. You know, if you want to have a real impact and you know, on of the human capital on the business, it's clearly also a vision of the CEO. And it's not an HR issue; it's more a senior management issue.
Dr. Charles, my last question. For
Yes.
leaders who are just beginning to align their human capital strategy with their digital transformation goals, what key advice would you offer to ensure they are setting their organizations up for success?
I think the first thing to do is to recognize the real added value of human capital, and you know, and to link the success of your company to the quality of the people you have. To be convinced that you have to train the best people. You have to attract. You have to have a good employer branding, but it's not, you have also to have a very good employee experience, because just branding is not enough. So, and employee experience is based on the quality of, for instance, of onboarding you provide to the newcomers, you know, the kind of training you give them to develop. Obviously, compensation is also an issue, but it's not always the highest level of compensation, you know. It's I would say at least a fair compensation. So again, my advice would be to start with this vision of the importance of human capital, and then to start to build a system, an HR system that is giving again the people the feeling that they are recognized, they are valued, they can develop, you see, and so on. And again, the management philosophy, I repeat what I already said in this podcast, is to give more autonomy, more respect, more, recognition to the people, and then it will work. And I think and every organization will develop its own model, people model. You cannot copy Southwest. It should be stupid for instance, Air India or Air France to copy the Southwest people model, but they can learn from, you see. So that's my conviction. I'm known in the Francophone world, including in Africa. I was, for instance, in Chad, in Jamena, an HR conference. I was 3 weeks ago. I was in Ivory Coast, in Abidjan, late June for Pan-African. So there were 22 countries in this HR conference, and I'm known in these Francophone countries because my vision had always been a strategic vision of HR. You see, the key differentiation to maintain and to develop and maintain a competitive advantage, you see. So I am very business-oriented HR, if you prefer.
Thank you, Professor Charles. Listeners, thank you for joining us on today's episode with Dr. Charles-Henri, where he shared invaluable insights from his research, human capital in the digital era, aligning talent with strategy for lasting impact. Dr. Charles-Henri, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast. Thank you for your invaluable contributions.
Thank you, Deepak. I hope my English was okay because, I'm French.
It's absolutely fine, Professor.
Yeah. But, I have a PhD from UCLA. I spent nearly 3 years in the US, and I've been many, many times to US. And I've been also many times to India, you see.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Professor. Yeah.
Thank you, Deepak.
Thank you.